reach a certain generation and a certain demographics. And gaming, events, tournaments, competitions, YouTubers were the road for that. And this is where Galaxy Racer pivoted into becoming a transmedia organization.
Welcome everyone to the GAMEON podcast, a podcast dedicated to everything gaming and esports from the Middle East, provided you or produced by Shore Partners, the leading tech investor in the Middle East, North Africa, and Pakistan. And today we have Walid Singh.
Hi everyone, thank you so much for the invite.
Thank you, Tarek. Thank you, Walid, for joining us. Looking forward to the discussion today.
Absolutely am.
Great. So let's kind of get for you, Walid, to kind of tell us a little bit more about yourself, your role at Galaxy Racer, and what Galaxy Racer is. Third point.
Thank you. I'm a bit of myself at first. I grew up as a digital marketer, events guy. I used to run a technology platform related to ticketing, so I was heavily involved in the startup ecosystem in the MENA region, focused on events and entertainment. And then I kind of transitioned into digital marketing and digital strategy. And this is where I help various F&B groups and events and kind of entertainment properties to create and manage and then execute their digital strategies. And when COVID came in, I joined Galaxy Racer as the head of marketing. I was, I think, employee number 2 or number 3 at the company back then. It was all on Zoom. It was fully COVID. We've never met each other as a company. We had never met the CEO as well. So it was really interesting. I joined in as the head of marketing at first. I was handling the initial birth of Galaxy Racer as a brand in the region. We had signed the first ever female League of Legends team from the Arab world back then. We were just wrapping up a major girl gamer event that we had launched just before COVID. And we were just kind of understanding the landscape, and we were trying to understand ourselves as well. So the marketing or the role that I was occupying at first was really around the brand itself, about our social media presence, about our efforts to reach out to the audience, about consolidating the other teams that we started bringing into the roster. And then I kind of started in a more strategic approach with my CEO still now and back then. And we were more talking about the industry and the full landscape of the creator economy and esports and gaming. And this is where my role kind of evolved more into strategy and operations. Because starting out at Galaxy Racer in the first, let's say, 5-6 months, everybody was doing everything. I was doing marketing. I was also doing talent acquisition. I was helping the talent managers. We were working on events. We were pitching to investors. We were pitching to clients. We had the esports team that we needed to manage as well on an individual and a team basis. And this is where I transitioned into the chief of staff of Galaxy Racer on a group level, global level. And this is where I was able to focus much more on the broader vision of Galaxy Racer, where again, because I was very early in, I was able to know what each division is doing and how they operate.
Definitely.
And what is the success in them. And that's today the role that I occupy across the group, mainly handling expansions, M&A, strategies, investments, even down to the campaign planning, to the client relations, just anything and everything that comes on my table, I kind of look after.
That's a very, very interesting background. The typical startup life cycle and wearing multiple hats and building something from scratch. Always an exciting journey. And for Galaxy Racer today is a well-known brand. So hats off to what you guys have been pulling.
Alhamdulillah, thank you. The team is instrumental to making all of this happen. Absolutely is.
Definitely, and I think you guys have had quite an interesting journey from the time you guys have started and so on. Everyone talks about 2020, 2021, that wave during COVID, and how that kind of sparked a lot of activity in the gaming scene. Curious to know, Walid, how do you think that kind of affected specifically the esports scene, and what kind of trends and things have you guys seen forward in that period?
I mean, it goes back to me now forgetting to tell you what is exactly Galaxy Racer, and that kind of relates to your question now. But Galaxy Racer started out as an esports organization, was signing the first female League of Legends team, and then soon enough we started signing more players, more teams. We were very much focused on both female and male, but it was a particular interest in the female ecosystem because our CEO comes from a gaming background, which is very rare in the esports world, as much of the esports entities are either managed by media or sports. But he comes from the game development background. So that was an interesting approach to take on esports. But as we started growing our esports roster and our presence in the esports world, we started realizing how much esports was a very small dot inside the gaming landscape. And by
Yeah,
gaming landscape, that's where we go into casual gaming, game development, and all of that. That industry is much bigger and much profitable and much more interesting. And then when we kind of drilled down even more, we figured out that the gaming market was also a small dot inside the massive media market. This is where you have your agencies, your marketing spend. And in the end, we realized what everybody was interested in was to reach a certain generation and a certain demographics, and gaming events, tournaments, competitions, YouTubers were the road for that. And this is where Galaxy Racer pivoted into becoming a transmedia organization that is fueled within its DNA by gaming and esports, but is able to communicate with that generation. So I see esports and gaming on an evolution level. Yes, in 2021, there was this massive boom. Everybody wanted to stream. Everybody was gaming. Everybody was watching Twitch and YouTube. They were all engaging with the game.
yeah,
But the result of that, or the evolution of that, is that it actually and finally cemented gaming and esports as a legit media outlet to reaching over to generations, just like TV is, just like music is, just like
yeah,
cinemas and movies are. Today, gaming and esports on an entertainment level have surpassed them all, and and it's here to stay. So I believe that is the next evolution for that media type to
Mm,
mature even more and be able to spread even more across businesses, brands, countries, and organizations. Because
mm,
gaming is still part of their media plan. They're still exploring it. They still want to do stuff in it. They know they need to be in it.
mm.
I'm seeing in the next 5 years, gaming is an absolute essential component, part of every single marketing strategy across industries.
I love what you're saying here, Walid, because we were actually contemplating the same. Today, when you see all the esports brand sponsorships that are happening around, you will see the same old faces, right? So you'll see the Lenovo's, the Dell's, the Razors, all the kind of the same players that have been um, probably sponsoring esports and playing around there, and drinks and beverages like Pepsi and Coca-Cola. But it doesn't seem that it has changed much yet. And it's interesting to see from your perspective that it might still be small steps, but it eventually will change dramatically over the next 5 years. It's very, very reassuring that people are understanding that games are today not just about entertainment, it's about social connectivity, and it's about tapping into that segment that is quite niche. Is it correct, Walid, that esports, at least from your perspective, we know that gamers today, average gamer age is around the 35-year-olds. On the esports side, is that different or is it the same?
I need to look at the numbers on a gaming level because I do believe 35 is a bit old.
Mm,
Um, on an esports level, it depends on the game title as well. Like if you look at games like Fortnite, the churn of professional players is incredibly young because the faster, more agile, more responsive you are, the better you are in a game. So we can get to see the trend of younger demographics being able to become professional esports players, and then the older one, as they grew old, they grow out of the game. But if we look at games like Dota 2, where experience matters, where having been at multiple LAN events and feeling the stress and feeling the pressure, and so that needs kind of a both an age maturity and almost of a mental maturity level. So the average age there might be a bit higher. It really depends on the titles and how straining the game can be, and in terms of what it requires from you mentally or physically.
Mm. Understood. One thing that I want to tap into expertise and lead is, and
Sorry,
correct
I'm
me if I'm
sorry
wrong,
to
but again, the
interrupt you.
that not only
I'm sorry to
it's
interrupt you. There
okay,
was a big cutoff, and then suddenly your
okay,
voice went very quickly. So I
don't
think it
worry,
lagged and let it go. Go ahead.
that's fine. So I wanted to tap into your expertise and understand, you know, Galaxy Racer has been producing events, has been, building teams, um, and and uh, and over the past few years, you guys have built a community that follows Galaxy Racer. Uh, how are they different from one country to another? So when you see a country like UAE, for example, versus uh, Saudi Arabia, what are the different gaps that you see? What are the, how competitive they are? What are some of the strengths compared to each other or the weaknesses? Interested to know your insight.
You mean on a team level, or do you mean on an
Yeah.
industry level?
Well, both. Maybe we can start with team level because we were discussing teams in a bit, right? So maybe let's continue that train of thought about teams and then flick into industry.
Absolutely. I mean, on an esports team level, if we look at our Enigma the Galaxy roster, we have, I think, our PUBG Mobile team, which is ranked among the top one or two in the Arab region, and they're top five globally. That team comes from Iraq. They were based from Iraq
Wow.
until we invested in them and we moved them to Dubai. We arranged for them, or the UAE in Abu Dhabi, we arranged for them boot camps, coaches, and they're really showing that effort, and they're really manifesting that effort in a different. I can't really say that a team in UAE is stronger than a team in
Mm,
Saudi, or a team, not because I don't want to, or it's taboo. On the contrary, we're in esports, we're highly competitive, so we like to say we're better than everybody. But in the MENA region, it's not yet enough.
yeah.
The industry is starting to finally shape up, and if I look at Nigma Galaxy, I mean, and I look at any other teams, I see there is still a massive gap. Now, there are teams that are shortening that gap in terms of global presence, but being from MENA and the UAE, because competing in the MENA region is not very rewarding on a price pool level. It's very difficult
Mm,
for it to seed into the globals. So we're not really competing against each other as in MENA as much as we are competing to get that global position and recognition. And again, some of the
mm.
teams that have closed the gap on that or are closing the gaps are teams like Falcons, who have done a phenomenal
Falcons, yeah, I was
job.
just gonna say, yeah.
They've done a phenomenal job, on so many levels, and they're really showcasing to the Arab world things that Nigma and Galaxy Racer have been trying to also showcase in the past 3 years, that this is a
Mm,
region that has incredible talent, that has an incredible ecosystem, but it doesn't mean that our talent comes from this region as well. Because it's been created in a way, especially with all the Saudi efforts and the UAE efforts and the Qatar efforts, it's
mm,
being created in a way where it is able to nurture and grow and take care of any talent across any demographic, across any country. So I don't see us competing on a team level with regional teams. On the contrary, I think we need to work together. I'm proud of our relationships with Mossad, for example, the guy that runs Falcons. We're good friends. I'm proud of our relationships with the other teams as well. Uh, I think together we are on a bigger mission to make sure that one of us, or some of us, or all of us make it globally, and make sure that the MENA region is the global hub of gaming, which is starting to happen.
Mm. Definitely, definitely. And Walid, you spoke about kind of spotting talent, acquiring talent. You've relocated the team from Iraq to Dubai, and I'm pretty sure a lot of that not just takes a lot of expertise and being able to kind of spot that talent, but also investment in terms of honing in their skills, in terms of exposure, and so on. How do you think that landscape kind of changed over the years, right? What did tech introduce in terms of how esports teams operate and train and kind of build a brand today? How did tech impact that versus a few years ago?
The tech impact is huge. The introduction of new servers, the creation of lobbies that were where you can have people from Iraq and from Egypt and then from Lebanon and then from the
Yeah,
GCC play on a single server with not a lot of ping. That kind of allowed for a lot of players to be inclusive more. If we look at a lot of the other servers, there needs to be a lot more work. Like I can tell you, in Fortnite, people that live in Lebanon, in Egypt, in Jordan are not able to compete on the Middle Eastern server.
yeah,
So that is a wealth of talent that is not present because the server is based in Bahrain, so it does not cover
mhm,
their ping area. While if it was based in UAE or somewhere a bit higher, it would actually hit all of North Africa and all of the MENA region. So the tech is there, but it needs a lot of work to reach a place where you have the entire Arab world included in this. Another interesting thing is on the evolution of that is the government and the country's involvement. This is very important beyond tech because we were able to get a team out of Iraq positioned in the UAE with visas, with accommodations, with permits, and it
yeah,
was really nice and seamless. And that is important because the easier countries make it to be able to siphon off talent from each other, the
definitely.
higher chances you have of building a mega team and a mega talent roster and all of that. That's been available all over Europe as one massive land as not even divided by countries. You have teams with players from Germany, from Norway, from Russia, from all competing in the same, and that is because borders have been removed by the country, and we're starting to feel that here. It's becoming extremely easy to bring in talent, at least on the UAE level, because we are based here. It's becoming super easy to relocate our talent, and we get benefits as well from the governments, from entities like Abu Dhabi and Dubai, where they're helping us and motivating us and supporting us to bring in this talent to the region here.
Yeah. And I think similarly, even in Sharjah Media City specifically, have done a tremendous amount of work as well to actually enable that. Saudi has recently been pioneering under the Saudi Esports Federation and his excellent Prince Faisal, and amazing work there in kind of enabling that to happen very fast in Saudi. So it's no surprise for teams like Falcons actually come from homegrown teams, but also now new teams are relocating to Saudi to kind of enable that new home base to exist. Walid, you brought something interesting that I wanted to follow on. Seeing the type of investments that you guys have done in esports and wondering, with the limitation in pool price, pool sizes, it makes me wonder, what kind of returns do esports teams today see, and why are they limited pricing? Why isn't there what's missing? Is there no investors in it? Is it a lack of education, or what is it?
I mean, it's a great question. It's a joke that we have. My CEO does all the time, and we say it. It's actually true. But creating an esports team is like throwing your money in a big black hole because you pour money and you pour money and you pour money and you get a lot of recognition and a lot of fame, but that money just
Mm,
disappears and you don't see it back, you know. And this is not because it's immature as an industry or still at the beginning as an industry, not at all. It's because esports alone on a global scale, if you look at prize pools on their own as well, is not enough to sustain a business. But this is where media comes into play, and that's why I started off by saying we started as esports, but we transitioned to transmedia because we realized to properly monetize esports as a sports as an actual activity within the group, you need to tap into content. You need to tap into content creators. You need to tap into platform monetization. You need to tap into events and tournaments and broadcasts. You need to tap into
Merchandising. Yeah.
a merchandise. You need to also create innovative ideas to brands to tempt them to come in, because slapping a logo on a jersey and then going to an event and asking for a sponsorship is not enough anymore. And going to an event and fully depending on a prize pool is also not enough. Now, there are big prize pools. Like if we look at TI and if we look at League of Legends, if we look at some of the more mature esports games like Dota 2, CSGO, and League of Legends, there is money in the prize pool. It's not enough to fully
Mm.
sustain it unless you are number one. And as you know, there are never guarantees for you to become number
Yeah.
one.
Totally.
So you need to activate these various capabilities that you have as an organization to be able to leverage your positioning inside of esports. In the future,
Um, mm,
it is going to be like sports properties where the teams and the prizes and all of that. But even if you look at football, if you look at the World Cup, if people that played the World Cup were playing it just for the prize pool, it's nothing. It's
mm.
almost equal to a Dota 2 championship on a World Cup prize pool, almost. But it's not because of the prize pool. It's because of the sponsors, the brands, the media rights, the broadcast, the
Absolutely.
tournaments, and all of that.
Absolutely. And I'm assuming as well that kind of extends the lifetime of the athletes themselves, right? Like if they were just to play for the sake of tournaments, chances are there's an age limit to how competitive they can be to a certain degree. But then with content and with media exposure, that
Exactly.
kind of pushes it a little bit more, and they can kind of continue that even if they're not competitive.
Absolutely. And this is something I tell athletes and creators all the time. You need to understand that there's going to come a time where you are no longer able to be productive enough to do what you used to do, whether you are a YouTuber, whether you were a content creator, whether you were an esports athlete. There comes a phase where you've grown out of it, where your audience grown out of it, where whatever it is. And that's why we absolutely stress on our athletes, on our creators, on our YouTubers, on our streamers, that you need to build a brand out of yourselves that lives beyond what you are currently doing. It has to, we even talk about that with sports athletes across the world. Some of the biggest sports athletes work with us on brand building and commercialization of various other ways that somebody can across digital and social media. So it is important for these athletes and creators to establish and determine a brand and to offload that brand to their audience and get them to retain and follow and engage with that brand, so that when you actually stop streaming or stop playing or retire, you're able to fall into the entrepreneur business category. And this is where you take your name and your brand into the next level.
Mm. Definitely, and I think you talked about kind of building a brand, which takes us to the topic of IP, right? And we hear this word a lot. We talk about games having strong IP. We talk about esports team having strong IP. Curious to know, Walid, within the landscape of esports, how do you go about defining it? Right, it's kind of subjective, but what for you represents strong IP that enables entrepreneurs, esports teams, or even games, right, to kind of go about building that brand and therefore kind of unlocking these different revenue streams along their journey?
I mean, I'll start from the beginning of the industry. When we look at the publishers slash devs like Tencent, who have created an incredible job at translating the IP into multiple forms of media, that is at the heart of our DNA on a group level at Galaxy Racer. Understanding IP and understanding the limitation of exploiting that IP and commercializing it and translating into multiple forms of media is absolutely crucial. And if you look like an example of League of Legends, there's the game, there's the music, there's the Netflix film, there's the toys, so that is the perfect example of properly monetizing IP and growing IP and creating commercial presence of IP. Now, if we go down the food chain from the dev and publishers down to the esports teams and then to the athletes and the creators, it's the same thing. But Tencent or Disney or these guys are massive transmedia organizations that have thousands and thousands of resources. Esports teams don't have that. So they need to have this intellectual property experience or IP experience that allows them to look at everything they're doing and turn it into into an IP and commercialize it. And that's one of the main things I learned from Galaxy Racer and from my CEO, who is heavy into IP, you know, and that was the first thing I learned. And everything we do today across Galaxy as a group or across the divisions or across the creator is with the objective and the vision to turn it into an IP that can be commercialized from A to Z, whether we're looking at a talent, at its merchandising, at a content series, whether we're looking at an activation or a stunt. We pitch to clients IPs. We don't just pitch actual, oh, we can do this for you. No, we actually design and develop an intellectual property related to their actual brief and then pitch it to them, whether it's a tournament, it's an event, it's a broadcast, it's a content series. So IP is extremely crucial and should be a kind of a pillar inside esports or gaming organizations.
Walid, yeah, I'm curious to know from you, looking into, 2 years from now, or let's say 5 years from now, wanting to kind of build the esports and the gaming scene. And this is really our mission as part of the Shift team in Shuruk Partners, is to enable this industry to grow to what it is today. We have an amazing consumer market. I think one of the fastest consumer markets around the world. We have an amazing young talent who stay very young across all populations. And we've noticed, if we are aware that there wasn't a lot of capital being poured into gaming esports over the past few years. And we took a very deliberate, conscious decision to actually change that, and we created Shift Build, which is a game tech incubator, around 150 founders so far. Just last year, we also creating an accelerator fund dedicated to investing in gaming. But majority of all of that is still kind of focused towards game development, towards software tools that enable game development to happen, social and streaming, and user generated content. But once you say esports, it's still a very big question mark. What do you think, over the next 5 years, for us to kind of get this esports industry to be well known, and we play a very critical role in it? What are some of the key things that we have to do as an ecosystem, from investors to governments to players to even companies like Galaxy Racer? What are some of the things that we all need to do to kind of make that success?
I mean, all the various stakeholders you just described are starting to put things into effect, whether it's by building arenas, whether it's by increasing prize pools in the region, whether by creating more leagues and more tournaments that will allow for the birth of more teams and more players. It is a tough investment decision to look at an esports team as a company. It is very challenging. It's not like technology where you can prove a product and then prove user acquisition and then prove a couple of client assumptions and you're good to showcase your case and build evaluation. That's not how it is in teams. I'm not sure if teams have reached a point where, just like tech startups, they're able to package themselves up. That's an experience that needs to be gained, but that's also an industry that needs to be matured as well in parallel, But I go back to something our CEO worked on a few years ago by creating this full strategy around transforming gaming and esports in the region. And it involved, just like as you said, investment in the gaming development world, in the gaming publishing world. It involves bringing in publishers and gaming stakeholders to the region. It involves adding as much infrastructural element of gaming as possible in a region. And this is where we think that brands and organizations are going to be able to be much more comfortable and spending much more money on the industry to allow it to reach levels of price pools similar to the US or Europe or
Yeah.
even the East, like Asia. There isn't one list or one kind of strategy to do this. It's looking at everything that Saudi is doing. I can tell you, hats down, if that goes the way it's planned, the MENA region is going to become the global hub of gaming. And looking into what the UAE is doing as well now with Dubai Esports Festival, now with esports and gaming being highly recognized within the Dubai tourism and economic authorities, having gaming as one of a pillar and a mission in Dubai's overall mission, and Abu Dhabi's as well, with two
Yeah.
454 efforts and what they're doing there. I think we're all on the right track. I think gamers are used to things happening very quickly, are used to things like wham bam, you're good. It's just like the gamer feeling, and the streamer feeling. But I think it's going to take some time. But when we're there, we're all going to feel it.
Definitely. And when you double clicking on that, I think from an investor point of view, whenever we talk about esports, we've incubated a few esports companies as part of both the Shift incubator cohorts, and we see kind of different models starting to come up, different business models. I think we obviously see a lot of tournament organizing platforms and so on. But curious to know from your experience, what kind of business models we might be able to see down the years, or perhaps maybe some gaps. And think of this as a nudge to founders that are kind of passionate about the space, but don't necessarily have the visibility on where the gaps are or where to start. What kind of business model innovations do you see in the esports side for startups that we might see coming up down the line?
Production tools, broadcasting, even talent management and talent development, like creating casters for the esports world, not forgetting everything about the 5 players sitting on the PCs they're sitting on. There's a whole economy on top of that is making sure these 5 players are able to play versus the other 5 players. And it is looking at that economy. And if you look at the television industry, if you look at the music and events industry, you're going to see that a lot of similarities exist, but within gaming, it needs a bit more on a tech level to be able to accommodate for it. If we look at battle royale games, you know how difficult it is to get 16 teams of 4 players on a stage to play PUBG Mobile on a mobile phone without having a cable between your hand? Do you know how difficult that is? Because we went through that by creating a PUBG Mobile tournament in Pakistan, in Islamabad, where we had 16,000 people and we were trying to maneuver those teams being able to play. I mean, I think the outlook into technology, whether it's on a tournament platform level, whether it's on a payment processing and payment distribution level, when it looks at prize pool, whether it is on an AI level as well, whether it is on a practice talent development level, all of that are incredible opportunities for future entrepreneurs to take on. Absolutely incredible.
Yeah, it's very refreshing, Walid, to hear you say that, because unfortunately, I think to this stage, we still see some who are questioning where is the tech in all of it, right? And I think it's only those who are kind of dip their toes into either on the game development side and the software side that enabled all of this to happen, like engines that we see today. The Epic Engine 5 is phenomenal. What is happening there is just on another level. And then to producing esports tournaments, it is not your typical production where where you're gonna get same cameras positioned everywhere and
Listen, I've done music events, concerts. I was on the production side to the marketing side. I was working on massive things like Katy Perry, New Year's Eve, like massive festival with 20,000 people coming in. And I worked on movies and content stuff. And I can tell you now I'm working and I'm looking at how events for the esports world and on it's different, man. It's different because music, concerts, events are industries that have been around for hundreds and hundreds of years. You know what a backline is. You know what a tech writer is. It's easy to secure instruments and hook up mics and do sound checks and all of that. With gaming, especially because it's broadcasted, you have two layers. You have, I mean, if Beyonce goes on stage and the mic doesn't work, you replace the mic. But if I have 5v5 tournaments and then something happened with the network, everything stops. The broadcast stops, everything stops. So again, I kind of remember our OB station in Pakistan where we had on stage the ability to host up to 16 teams of 4 players each. That's 64, 80 players all at the same time on a stage. On the right side of the stage where nobody could see, we had 40 PCs and 40 employees managing the tournament operation, the queuing, the Discord management, the broadcasting, the transitioning of the screens. It's not easy at all. So,
Impressive.
it is a heavy industry. I do think as well that arenas and venues are starting to understand that. We've been having a lot of conversations. We've seen venues, for example, I've seen an incredible venue in Qatar called Virtue City, an incredible arena. And I believe that's the only existing arena in the Arab world right now. The only existing esports gaming arena that is fully functioning, I believe it's in Qatar right now. It's called Virtue City. And it is set up for a battle royale level, so it can fit up to 100 players, and it can fit up to the 5v5 classic type of approach. But arenas, venues, locations are starting to understand that and create that infrastructural backend from their side, so we don't need to go and hire hundreds of people to pull off an event.
Walid, I mean, yeah, go ahead.
Although you have the traditional old way fashion of doing this, and that's the new way, which is pulling an event fully online, and we do that as well. I'm able to shut down the phone and within 24 hours have a championship Fortnite organized, managed, broadcasted with talent and casters running fully online. But the minute you go into a studio element or a LAN element, this is where everything.
Yeah, absolutely. You got us extremely excited, Walid. I love the
Good.
energy and the passion. What a what a broadcast this is. What an episode this is. We really coming out of this quite energized and we can't wait to kind of hook you up again on another episode of GAMEON broadcast, kind of explore other areas with other with other participants and or guests. And it's really exciting what you guys have been doing, kind of curate this. Appreciate all your time today. Unfortunately, it comes to an end for today's podcast. But please beware that we'll definitely get you back on.
Easy. I love being part of this. I love what you guys are doing. I wish you all the luck.
Thank you so much, everyone. Thank you so much for tuning in. Really appreciate all the time for myself and Sally. Thank you so much for tuning in. Have a good day.
Thank you.